The American Revolution, Part 2. And our first subtopic is the Revolutionary War moves to the South. Moves to the South. The Revolutionary War, Part 2. The Revolutionary War moves to the South. Now you got to remember, in 1780, the British Army still holds the upper hand in this Revolutionary War. We've fought back and we've won some victories here and there, but overall, we're far from victory. So by 1780, the British Army is still controlling the Revolutionary War. We have not won enough battles to say that we're even yet. Okay? Now, what important area do the British still have? New York and the harbor. That's important to know. And so now the British philosophy is, if we can gain control of the South, because basically they've cut New England off, have they not? If we can get control of the South, then we will refocus on New England, and they felt they could win the Revolutionary War that way. So they've got control of New York. Yep. Not much. Not much. No, actually Benedict Arnold did quite a job there. And somebody asked me, I can't remember, asked me, did you ask me that yesterday about Benedict Arnold? Or if we were going to spend much time on Benedict Arnold. I hate to focus on that one negative thing he did, although it was pretty treasonous, although so-so, because he didn't really make a big difference. So we'll talk about that. So anyway, now, what is the reason the British want to go to the South? What are they going to profit from? What's down there that they didn't have in the North? More loyalists. Very good. Because remember, what are the type of people that live down there? Farmers, plantation owners. So the South will profit from the large number of loyalists that are there. And the British believe it'll be easier to capture important ports and agricultural centers there because there's a ton of loyalists in the South. Now, why are the South so loyal to the king right now? Why aren't they jumping up and down about revolution? No, because what are they doing, these southern plantation owners?
Selling.
They're making good money selling. So they're thinking, why would I screw this up? So these loyalists in the South have nothing to gain, really, when you think about it. With independence from Britain, all they're going to do is lose profits from their trade that they're trading now with the mother country. So that's why the South has so many more loyalists. The Southern loyalist allegiance to the king is very profitable. Their products are shipped to Great Britain. They got nothing to gain with independence from Britain because they're making money trading with the mother country. And the British know this. That's why they're going to go down to the South and try to clean out the what? Non-loyalists in the South and gain control. Okay? Now, I'll give you two examples of how the British had no problems occupying those southern seaports. Where are the most important southern seaports, if you can remember from our previous lecture? Charleston, okay? In May of 1780, the Patriots surrendered Charleston, South Carolina. So that port had no problem being taken. But even earlier than that, way back in 1778, in December of 1778, they seized the second most important port there, which was where? No, that doesn't belong to us necessarily. So what's the other port in Georgia? Starts with an S. Savannah. Very good. Savannah, Georgia. So I went backwards, but I want to make a point that the British had no problems occupying those southern seaports. In December of 1778, they had already seized Savannah, Georgia, and in May of 1780, they captured Charleston, South Carolina. So from those two bases, the British are pretty able to move where and when they want. They've gained the two most important seaports in the South. Okay, now picture this in your mind. The British forces from those two ports basically just raid the countryside. They plunder, they burn everything they can in an attempt to run who into submission? Patriots. So they are just making an assault on the South. And the first two southern colonies that fall are Georgia and South Carolina, which makes sense because those are the places where the ports were. So Georgia and South Carolina fall. Now, as the British are trying to scour the South and push the Patriots out, who do they leave to make sure that Georgia and South Carolina stay, loyal to Britain? Who's going to guard those areas? The Loyalist militias. So Loyalist militias are going to be stationed in important parts of Georgia and South Carolina. And their responsibility is going to be hold the captured territory. And the rest of the British forces are going to continue their march through the South. Now, by 1780, there were 8,000 American Loyalists that were fighting to crush the American Revolution. So we have 8,000 Loyalists. Those are those that are loyal to the king, that are fighting against the Patriots, and they're fighting against this revolution. So you've got to keep in mind that the American Revolution, the Patriots weren't only fighting the British, they were fighting 8,000 Loyalists as well. So it was somewhat, in a way, kind of a civil war to a point because they're fighting other colonies. Okay? Now it got kind of crazy because civilians became involved fighting the South, and I'll tell you an interesting story about Nancy Hart. Nancy Hart. And she was not a loyalist. She was a patriot. She had 8 children in Georgia. She lived in the backwoods of Georgia. She had 8 children. Where was her husband? Fighting. Very good. He was fighting in the local militia. Okay? The Georgia militia did have patriots. There are patriots in the South. And her husband was fighting in the local militia. So she's left alone with her 8 children on their little farm in the backwoods of Georgia. Now, even though she had 8 children, she served the revolution in her own way. What did she serve as, do you think?
A spy.
A patriot spy. So she served as a patriot spy. She was a tough, what they called raw-boned frontier woman, kind of a hefty gal, big-boned woman, so to speak, tougher than nails. And she was a little masculine. She was 6 foot tall, and because of her masculine appearance, she actually disguised herself as a man and served as a patriot spy. That's what she did. So because of her height, being 6 foot tall, and her masculine appearance, Nancy Hart could disguise herself as a man and a spy. So she would cross into British encampments posing as what? Loyalist man. And she would gather valuable information for the Patriot side. This is what she did, while raising 8 children without her husband. I mean, that's pretty good commitment. Now, when she was back on her farm in her regular life, she was often harassed by loyalist militia on the farm. They would show up. Okay? They would show up and harass her. And what else would they be looking for on her farm? Maybe weapons, but more if she was housing any patriot rebels. Okay? If she was providing any aid, which might be weapons. So she was often harassed by local loyalist militia, and at one point she was suspected of harboring a patriot rebel in her home. So the loyalist militia come up and they confront her about that, which actually she was not doing at the time. Well, he's going to come home and you'll hear the story. Well, so here come this group of loyalist militia harassing her about the possibility of her housing a patriot rebel in her home. And she was a fearless woman, but what did she fear for? Her children. So although, she was tough as nails, she was afraid what might happen to her 8 children. So at first, when they showed up, she refused to cooperate. Even though she wasn't harboring anyone. She was trying to cooperate. She was refusing to cooperate. Even though she could have said, hey, you look around. I'm not harboring any rebels. But even though she didn't have any, she refused to cooperate. She was a tough old gal. But she did know that if she made a false move, what could it result in? Her children's death. Okay? So she was cautious. Well, because she wouldn't cooperate, one of the loyalist militia went out and shot one of her turkeys, brought it in, threw it on the desk, so to speak, or the table, and forced her to clean, cook, and feed it to him. So, and basically made a comment, if you don't cooperate, this is what's going to happen to you. You'll be next. So this loyalist militia goes out and kills one of her turkeys right in front of her, brings it in, and says, this is what's going to happen to you if you don't cooperate. Threw it on the table, forced her to clean it and cook it, feed it to the group that were there. Does she resist? Does she refuse to do that? No. She does not resist, but she's in her mind thinking of a plan she's going to try to protect herself and her children. So, what plan might you have if you had 5 or 6 loyalist militia at your house? They're forcing you to cook up a turkey and feed it to them. What might you do to get them off guard? Close. She didn't have any poison, but
Under liquor.
don't marry McGarvey. She'll poison you by undercooking your turkey. So what did she do to get him off guard? Rogers, I thought you'd know this for sure. No?
She's a hook.
No. Well, listen, you're somewhat on the right track. She didn't do that, but what might she do to get him off their game?
Wait, what?
Got him drunked up. Oh, did you?
That's like him with some liquor.
Yeah, got him all drunked up. So what she did is she decided to try to get him all drunked up so she could try to disarm him and send for help. That was her plan. As she's cleaning and cooking this turkey, she's thinking in her mind, what can I do to protect my children? Well, I'll get these guys all drunked up or liquored up, and I'll try to disarm them. That was her plan. Well, it worked pretty good because these loyalists weren't afraid of her, so they stacked up their muskets, all stacked them up like this against the back door. They stacked up their muskets thinking, she can't do anything to us. There's 6 of us. We can stack our muskets up there. We can take her if she grabs, whatever. They don't have any fear. So they stack up their muskets by the door. They drank more and more spirits, as they were called in those days. And here's what she did. She got over by the door and kind of kept an eye on them. And she sent her daughter outside, and her daughter would crack open the back door, and she would sneak one musket out, and another musket out, and another musket out. She was sneaking these muskets out to her daughter out so she could take them outside of the house. Well, she got discovered. And when they discovered her, she grabbed one of those muskets and cocked her back and said, "Stop! The first one who twitches, I shoot stone dead." And they just stand there. Because none of them really want to get shot. Could they have rushed her? Probably. But nobody was going to stand up to that fact. Although, she says that, and one guy thinks he's kind of brave, and he moves towards her, and she shoots him down, stone dead. Grabs another musket and holds the other ones off until her husband and the Patriot militia arrive. Yeah. So let me explain that again. So as they're drinking up, she's got her daughter outside the back door, and she's sneaking these muskets out one at a time, and her daughter's taking them, and she gets caught. When they catch her, she grabs a musket, cocks it back, says again, "Stop, the first one who twitches, I shoot stone dead." A guy comes towards her, She shoots him, stone dead, picks up another musket and holds him off. Now, not another one, you know, they're thinking they could have rushed her one at a time. They probably could have got her, but somebody was going to lose their life. Okay? So, her husband and the militia arrive back home and find his wife holding these 3 or 4 loyalist militia at bay. What's her husband want to do when he gets there? You're damn right, he's going to shoot him on the spot. He wants to shoot him on the spot, but she won't let him. And she says, quote, "Nope, that's too good for them. I want to see them strung up." And that's what they did. Hung them all. Yeah, hard woman. Her husband wants to shoot him. She says, "No, that's too good for them. I want to see them strung up," which is exactly what they did to these loyalist militia. Hung them all. Tough woman.
That's rude.
Well, that's just another example of one of those people in history that you never hear about. Well, loyal patriots like Nancy Hart do slow Britain's advance in the South. They are fighting back. Okay, they're not just running. Okay, they're putting up a fight. Now, there was a battle on October 7th, 1780. And I forgot to bold this and put it on your ID sheet, so you add it on there. It was called the Battle of King's Mountain. The Battle of King's Mountain on October 7th, 1780. The Battle of King's Mountain. The Battle of King's Mountain occurred on October 7th, 1780. "2,000 men, now picture this, 2,000 men from both sides are fighting in this battle, which means there's 2,000 what? Loyalists and 2,000 patriots. You hit it, you even got it better. And it's exactly right, because on the British side, there's only one British soldier. The rest are loyalist militia fighting against patriot militia in the Battle of King's Mountain in North Carolina on October 7th, 1780. So what is this a prelude to as we end the lecture today? The Civil War. Our first Civil War might have been fought at the Battle of King's Mountain in 1780 in North Carolina, when 2,000 militia from both sides fought each other. Closest thing we had to a Civil War. Okay, we'll finish some of this up. We'll continue up tomorrow. Good job. I'll get your test back tonight.